So I guess the first question really, and the best way to start, is to get a bit of a background on the Lighthouse Club, its mission as a charity, potentially when it was started as well, and when you got involved.
All right. Okay. So, well, charity has been around for a long time. It was established in 1956. And I hasten to add that I wasn't around when it started, okay? Make any slight comments. So it's been around for a long time. And initially it was set up as a benevolence type charity. And it was set up at that time, there was around about 200 people every year dying on construction sites in the UK. And it was horrendous, and the families were left in pretty poor state because there was no policies or anything to support the families. So a group of very senior managers basically got together and said, let's form something to help families. And it just happened to be an exhibition up in the northeast of England, and I believe they might have come out of a pub and looked across the water and saw Whiteley Bay Lighthouse in the northeast, and said, let's call it the Lighthouse Club, and it will be a beacon of hope for the industry going forward. And that's how it all started. And since then, the charity has grown from strength to strength, and it's now got a nice sort of regional network of about 22 regional hubs, all volunteer hubs, from people in the construction industry that do good things to raise us funds. And about 7 years ago, they decided to put a little bit more oomph into the central part of the charity. So they hired their first full-time CEO, which was me, about 7 years, in fact 8 years this July. And I came on board, and basically my job is to wake up every day and see what we can do to make the charity better, support more people. And one of the first things we did was to put a 24/7 helpline in place for the industry, because it wasn't just about giving people money to help them through their problems. It was like looking after many other aspects of that. So from that, we derived a mission, which is when we get stuck in our work, sometimes you look up and say, what we're trying to do here. Then our mission is to ensure that no construction worker or their family is and we are very much trying to put every single angle of help and support we can around that individual, so that they can engage with us, so we can help them through their problems.
Sounds great.
Bill, can I just ask, what were you doing before you joined up with the Lighthouse Club?
For a large part of my life, I was in the commercial world of software and hardware. So I worked for Hewlett-Packard, senior manager there, and also for Sage, which is the accounting software company.
We use them, don't we, Callum? Sage?
We do, yeah. The admin team are a big fan.
Yeah, there you go. So so that was my commercial background, and then I was working for a company that was doing ERP systems, enterprise resource planning systems for the automotive industry. And it got bought out by a big American company, and they asked me to go to the Middle East and run their Middle East operations. And I went to my wife and said, would you fancy a spell out in the Middle East? And she said, no. So I said, well, now's a good idea to escape from the world of commercial world. And then I joined a charity called Wooden Spoon, which which is the children's charity of Rugby. And rugby's been a big part of my life. And I met all my childhood heroes there over the 6 or 7 years I was running the charity there. And then I needed another challenge, and I was born and brought up in a lighthouse off the west coast of Scotland, a little island off the west coast of Scotland. So I am the son of a lighthouse keeper. And this charity came along. It's called the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity. And I thought, okay, that's a bit of a nod to the old man. I'll go see what that's about. And it's got nothing to do with lighthouses. So, but I enjoyed the people that interviewed me and everything. So I got the job, and here I am today.
Wicked.
Perfect. What was it that gave you the urge to come away from the commercial world and start working within charities?
Well, I'd always as a young man, I'd always given back to charity. Even through all my commercial life, I'd always raised money for charity. In fact, I'd always raised money for the Wooden Spoon. Playing rugby and then raising money, for rugby whilst, so I did a lot of challenges, marathons, up and down mountains, cycle rides, you name it. Everything to abuse my body in some, usually my body and my liver, by the way, in equal measure. So it was a very natural thing to do, to say, right, if I'm coming out of this, I don't really want to go into another commercial venture, so let me look at the world of charity. And I was just, again, lucky that Wooden Spoon were looking for a CEO, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. So that got me into the charity sector, which I've absolutely loved, because even though you obviously don't get the commercial or the financial return, you get a very strong spiritual return, which is good. So maybe one day when I go up to the pearly gates and knock on the door, somebody might let me in.
It's funny how your perspective changes, I guess, as you get older or into your more experienced years, that you move from maybe a commercial driver to a spiritual one.
Yeah, I think that goes back to, you can look at some of the learning, like Maslow. I don't know if you've ever done any of these Maslow thing. You've been a coach, you can see, it's these different levels as to live, to love, to learn, to leave a legacy. It's a kind
hierarchy of needs.
Hierarchy of needs. And when you're right at the bottom level, and a lot of the people that we support in the charity are at level 1, where that is to live. They're actually working to live. Just to eke out an existence for them and their family. And then the second level is to love and actually to love and be loved, which is not only do you give your love, but other people love you as well. So you've got a network around you, and that's very empowering as well, when you've got people who you love and they love you, sort of type thing, at that network. And then the next thing which lifts you out of these different levels is learning. So you can, having the opportunity and the capability to learn new things and develop yourself is, again, something that is within everybody to be able to do that. And then ultimately the end game is leave a legacy. What are you going to leave on this mortal coil when you depart? And it could be something as simple as a Tom Coyd. I've left a Tom Coyd on this planet to do my work now. So it could be something as simple as that, or it could be something different. Like say if you've managed to do something with a charity, or you've done something like created Amazon. Whatever you've done, you've left a legacy behind that goes beyond you. Didn't realize this interview was going to take down these psychological routes, but there you go.
Yeah, it's only taken 5 minutes as well. It's there's got to be some sort of record, I'd imagine.
It's gone very Joe Rogan, hasn't it? I'm enjoying it.
It has. Yeah, I've been watching too much of his podcast, I think. It's rubbing off on us. You mentioned about setting up the 24/7 construction helpline earlier. You also offer a lot of training sessions.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about what it is that you offer within those training sessions and how companies can get involved with that?
Right. So all of our services are built around the 3 pillars of well-being, which is mental well-being, physical well-being, and financial well-being. And we always talk about mental well-being, but it's a big subject. You just think, I'm going to fix your mental well-being. There's other elements to it that affect it quite considerably. Like if you're in serious debt, it's going to affect your mental well-being, or if you've got a disability, and something maybe Tom, you'll recognize this as well. There's some people that overcome that adversity really well, and that's to do with your mental state. There's people who have got very incredible physical disabilities, but actually have good mental health because the way they overcome their disability. So it's all our stuff's built around those 3 pillars. So the 24/7 helpline is available to anybody in the UK, in the Ireland, and Ireland. And again, it gives support around those 3 pillars. We'll give support mental well-being, physical well-being, and financial well-being. So if somebody's in severe poverty, we'll give them a grant to help them through that physical, that financial hardship. Then we've also got this app. It's a downloadable app as well. It's a free app. It's called the Construction Industry Helpline app. Our marketing people took a long time to come up with that name. But it does what it says on the tin. It is the app that supports everything. And there's loads of stuff in that app. And we're really proud of that app. And Coins, that are one of the software companies that supply into the construction sector, gave us all the technical development of that free, but we curated all the stuff that went into it, and we're on our second iteration of that now. And again, it covers the three topics of mental well-being, physical well-being, and financial well-being, and we're developing that all the time. And then the third area that we've moved into more recently is proactive education. To your point, Callum, is we're now making freely available these seminars, masterclass seminars, on subject matters like building resilience, stress management, work-life balance, mindfulness, and meditation for construction, which is an interesting one. And if you've ever done it, it is actually really good. And the other two ones we've developed more recently is Bang on Budget, which is helping people to put their household budgets together. And this has come off of the stuff that we've done with the helpline, where a lot of the callers coming in are in financial hardship. And when you look through everything that comes in, their income and expenditure, you see it's a management process that's gone wrong. So Bang on Budget's about looking at what's good debt, what's bad debt, how to mitigate debt, etc., without getting into trouble. And another one we've created is At the Interview, because we recognise a lot of people are going to be in a state where they're looking for new jobs, etc. So it's how to put a CV together, how to present yourself at the interview. So all of those are free. And then on top of that, we offer the half-day mental health awareness course, free of charge as well, which is trying to educate people managers in the industry how to recognise people that are suffering mentally and how to approach them. And also the 2-day mental health first aid awareness course, which your manager's just been on. And again, to make that freely available to everybody in our industry, so that we get more movement on developing the culture going forward, to make it a better place and a better environment to work, not only for this generation, but for the next generation as well. It's like shifting that culture. And it's something that Martin Coy's very much involved in as well. Is very much been working with Martin for the last 2 or 3 years on pushing that envelope as hard as we possibly can within the construction sector.
Yeah, I've got the app. It's great, actually. You'd expect something that's born out of the construction industry to be really clunky and not quite as fluent as it is. And my dad Martin encouraged us all to download it after we did the half-day mental health aware course. I'm just wondering, what can individual companies like Vertemax do to try and either like distribute the app or share what's available to them in terms of like the services that the Lighthouse Club's offering at the moment?
Okay, I mean, that's to me this the most simple thing that any company can do, is without looking at being a company supporter or raising money or anything like that, is to spread the word. Because the more people that know that we're there to help them, the more people we can help. It's as simple as that. So companies like Vertemax can basically encourage all of their workers to download the app. In fact, my son's at university in Bristol, and a lot of his mates have downloaded the app, because even although they can't actually go and use our helpline, it's got lots of other places to go, because we've researched about 3,000 different places to go and signpost them to us. It's actually a good signposting app.
Yeah.
For MD to use, even though we stuck construction as the main place to use it, anybody can download it, and there's lots of good information for everybody. Although the helpline is there for construction workers, our helpline is there for construction workers, but things like Samaritans, Anxiety UK, all the other major charities, Alcoholics Anonymous, etc., are there for everybody, and they're all in the app. They've got how to go get them and how to go use them. So encouraging the download of the app. The second thing is the posters as well. We've got a whole series of posters that you can download. It's got all these numbers on as well, and also we've got these little cards. We've got these out. It doesn't show very well up here, does it? Well, there you go. So these little cards, they go out. We've actually got 600,000 of these in circulation in construction now, and they've got the helpline number on the front. how to download the app and some key numbers in them as well. That's a wallet size, but a bit old tech that, we definitely encourage downloading the app, because in the app we can instantly update people with new pathways, new signposting. In fact, we've just added 2 cracking new elements to the app very recently, which is Nudge, which is a way of managing your finances really well, and also another piece of app which is how to measure your own mental well-being as well, through a program called 1 Million Lives, which again is available through the app. So it's very easy for us to add to the app. It's a lot more difficult for us to add to a piece of card, because that piece of card would become about this size. So carrying it around would be like having a sort of sandwich board on you. So.
You mentioned previously about the training courses that you hold. Are these being carried out online still?
Yeah, they're all available. If you go to the website, the Lighthouse website, under training, you'll see all the scheduled courses that are running, and anybody can go in and register them. And our preference is not at the moment just to give that you can watch the video on your own. These are all sessions that are mentored by professional trainers. So it's a live interactive program. So there is questions and feedback that can be done at the end of the program as well, which is because it's having that learning with other people that can be better. And if people start talking in that session, at the Q&A session, and start talking openly, it does actually encourage other people to do the same as well. So they're all online now as well, which has really amplified our ability to get to more people quickly. And can't remember, I saw the number, I think it's maybe 6,000 people we've put through the program now, which is huge, and it's great, because each one of those are advocates that are going out there and then hoping and supporting the whole culture change.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, you've reached out to 6,000 people, but you can bet that those 6,000 people have mentioned it to at least 10 people individually, and said what a fantastic service they've received.
Yeah, we hope that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
But, and we're seeing some of that, because I mean the courses are getting, especially the half-day awareness and the 2-day mental health first aid courses, they get booked up really quick. And the thing is, commercially out in the open market, I think they're around about, the 2-day course is around about, I think 150 to 250 pounds a place. Well, you can get it for free if you support our charity. Simple. So it's a bit of a no-brainer, really. And there's lots of ways to support our charity, because that's the other side of the coin, is we can't keep on giving this away free if we don't raise some funds. So companies like yours have become company supporters, and that helps us. There's an annual pledge, like that helps us our planning. There's about 360,000 companies in construction. If they all gave us 100 quid a year, that would sort us out, no problem. But it's getting to those companies to do that is difficult. So we get all sorts of other wild ideas to put in place to raise money when we can't do events, because that's been a big issue for us last year, and it will be this year, is that we've been a very events-oriented fundraising charity. So if you can't do events, how do you raise funds? So we've come up with some really kooky ideas of how to do that as well. So
yeah, that was going to be one of the questions that I was going to ask, actually. How has the last year been in terms of fundraising? Have you changed your approach to the fundraising events? Have you done any sort of online things?
Yeah, we've when March came down last year, we took what's the worst case scenario, and our worst case scenario was that all our events were cancelled, which actually turned out to be the case. But we said in March that, okay, that's going to happen. What do we do? So we said we've got to innovate our way out of this. So the very first thing we did was we put out a crisis appeal to the industry, saying, we're going to be in the CAC here. If we're going to keep delivering these services, much needed services and support, we need your help. And the industry turned around, and through that programme, we raised £500,000 through that crisis appeal, which was amazing. And then we did some work with our helpline as well. We invested in more professional caseworkers on the helpline, because what we realized that when we were giving out money, our own grants to people, financial grants to people, we may have been giving money to people where they could have had other benefits from the state if they only knew how to apply for them. So by putting in really great, we've employed now 5, 6 caseworkers, professional caseworkers, and they will sit on the shoulder of that individual, make sure they get every single state benefit that they're entitled to first, before we give out them a grant to help them and top it up. And that leveraged, last year leveraged £564,000 of entitled benefits to these people that they just didn't know how to get them, or they didn't know they should be getting them. And the forms to fill in are horrendous. So we were helping them to do all this, to fill it in. And then we topped them up and we gave away about another £250,000 on top of that, of grants on top of that, to help them as well. So that actually saved us money by investing in people as well. So between these two things, we actually covered off what our deficit was going to be. And then we did a really kooky thing at Christmas time, which was like an e-Christmas card, where companies bought an e-Christmas card, and inside each card that they sent out was a Christmas cracker, which was a lottery ticket. And we got it all sponsored, and we had companies who gave us the prizes and sponsored the prizes. The first prize was £10,000. Wow. Yeah, it was a good prize. And we did this thing called Bingo Lingo, I think it was called, which was like a virtual bingo session. It was absolutely wild. And, we had over 300 people playing bingo. And part of that whole program, we did a DJ who took the first 45 minutes. This woman did a DJ, not my kind of music, it was young people's music. And then we did the Bingo Lingo stuff. And then we did the big lottery draw at the end of that. So with 2 hours worth of program on a Friday evening, the 18th before Christmas, to do all that. And that in total raised us about £90,000, which was pretty amazing. So we've learned from that. And this year we're going to be launching a Lighthouse lottery this year as well. And we're going to get companies to engage in Lighthouse lottery because we feel that these virtual things, if we can't do events, then these type things are something we can get companies and individuals to buy into if they can get something back as well. So lots of fun and games.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's great to hear. I mean, even for myself personally, the events that we attend as Vertemax as a company, they all got cancelled last year, and that's something that I typically look forward to. I think we do maybe 3 a year, so it's not something we do lots of, but it's something that I look forward to, and they've obviously all been pushed back again and rearranged for 2021, but it looks like could be pushed back again. You just don't know. But
yeah, we've got 2 massive challenges this year that we desperately we want to put on last year. One was a cycle ride from Leitrim in Ireland down to Killarney over 3 days, and at the same time doing the 4 Peaks Challenge, which is up the highest mountains in Scotland, England, Wales and Ireland, and ending up in Killarney at the same time as the guys on the cycle and have a big party in Killarney. And it was all arranged for last September, gone. So we've raised it again for this September. And like you, Callum, I'm beginning to get the feeling that might not happen. It's just, it might happen because it's outside in the open air, and it depends. We think it's so difficult to even know if it's going to happen. But certainly for sure is that any large indoor events are not going to happen anytime soon. And we've got our Christmas lunch that we cancelled last year. We normally get 1,000 people in a room at our Christmas lunch and raise £250,000 at our little lunch on a Friday afternoon, which last year was cancelled. So that's how we had to do the crisis appeal, because losing that kind of money out your charity income is huge. So, but we hope that'll go ahead this year. But again, it might not, because maybe we can't put 1,000 people in a room. I don't know. We'll see.
Exactly. It is good to hear that you're keeping those dreams alive, though, and they're not being cancelled completely. You're pushing it back. You're amending the plan as you're going, and I think that's the best thing anyone can do at the moment.
I think your plans, everybody's plans, have got to be flexible. You've got to put more flexibility in all your plans at the moment as well. So just get it back. So I think that's just really important. And the one thing will go ahead, I think, is golf. I think golf will come back pretty soon. So if you're a golfer, then we've got some cracking golf days lined up as well. We reckon that'll come back in about May, June time. One of the first things to come out of lockdown is golf, and some fun games there.
Is that a big thing for yourself personally then, a round of golf?
Yeah, well, since I gave up rugby, then taking all my frustration out in a poor defenceless little golf ball has been a great pleasure for me.
What position did you play when you played rugby?
Started off in second row, and then number 8, and then wing forward, and then carrying on the water. So yeah, quite a few.
Was that your most effective role, the water?
Carrying on the water, I think it was.
So you mentioned earlier, Bill, a little bit about how your training sessions were broken down into, I think it was 7 key areas, such as budgetary. Obviously, you've got mental health, physical health as well in there. Focusing on the construction industry, what typically are the main stresses that the workers come to you with, and how does that change between someone who's self-employed and someone who's not?
It's actually difficult to fully quantify in the sense that in the industry there are so many stressors in the industry. You know, people are working away from home, so there's isolation type issues about working away from home and away from your family. 53% of the population in the construction industry are either self-employed, agency workers, or on 0-hour contracts. So there's a lot of anxiety about where the next piece of work is actually coming from, as well, and they put and laid off at short notice, which makes it very difficult for the planning. There is long hours at work as well. You know, and it's hard work as well. There's the influences there's sort of unhelpful male stoic beliefs in the industry as well, which makes it difficult for people sometimes who are of a more sensitive nature to be able to feel comfortable in that environment, or they are part of they've got differences of opinion from other people to be able to express those opinions without being ridiculed. So it's quite a difficult environment to actually work in. So what you see as a consequence of that, we get individuals who are obviously quite stressed, and stress in itself causes anxiety, because once you feel stressed all the time, you get into a state of anxiety that you get sort of like an imposter syndrome. You don't think you can do your job anymore. You don't think you're capable of doing that sort of work, so you get anxious about it. And then if you're anxious and stressed for any period of time, you can easily drop into a depressive state as well. So it's about capturing people at the very first part of that process and helping them work through those problems. But typically what happens is we catch people later on when it's actually transpired as they've actually got a financial problem, because they've been out of work for a while and they can't deliver or whatever, or they've had a relationship breakup with their partner and they're in a bit of a crisis, and then it's when you're catching a little bit later on, you're putting the pieces back together. But you definitely notice that if that person had come and talked earlier, it would have been a lot better, because it's a lot easier to fix at an earlier part of the process. So all of those things happen whether you're self-employed or somebody who is employed in the industry. So I don't see there's a major distinction, although if you're self-employed, you've probably got a little bit more anxiety about where your next piece of work's coming from as well. So I think that's probably one of the key differentiators.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of stigma, I'm thrilled that I think in the corporate zone it's starting to be broken down, but I spend most of my time on building sites with operatives, and sadly, I don't get the same feel from sort of that environment. So, what are the Lighthouse Club, and what can sort of the companies on the ground do to move their operatives in a more open-minded direction?
So through the Building Mental Health program, we have come up with a 5-step plan that any company of any size can engage in, and it's a very straightforward 5 simple steps. The first step is that for any company, no matter big or small, we need to get senior management to sign a charter. That charter says that we as a company are going to treat mental well-being of our workforce as a priority, and signing off on that, putting it into a frame and sticking it in your reception is all very well, but you've still got to believe in it. But it's the very first part of the process, because if your senior management don't believe in it, the program will fail at the first hurdle. The second step is that we believe that everybody in the industry, whether you're a subcontractor or an employee, should have access to an employee assistance program and some sort of type of support, like a supporting app. And if there's plenty of private companies around that do a good job, I would certainly, advocate that there's plenty around. But if a company says, well, hold on, we can't afford that, then our charity's there with a free employee assistance program, basically, and a free app. So there's no reason why you can't do steps 1 and 2 very, very quickly. Is sign the charter and get that, goes the posters, helpline cards and everything, start creating that culture. And then the third step, which I think is equally as important, it's all very well if you've created these services for people to tap into, but unless you create an environment for them to talk, then it's going to be difficult for people to open up. So we advocate a toolbox talk to the workforce, and actually create time through a mentored session, a toolbox talk session. And again, through Building Mental Health, there's a downloadable presentation that anybody who's a people manager can download, get his team together and say, like, let's go through this together. And believe it or not, when you get people in a room and you give them the permission to talk about stuff apart from Radio 5 and Talk Sport type stuff, then it's amazing what people start talking about and opening up about. And then what you get is a lot of empathy going around the room saying, yeah, I've got the same problem, and this is what I did. So it really does start the conversation. And if you start creating that culture that people feel okay to talk about stuff that they're not normally talked about, then they will then naturally, hopefully, move towards getting help for any particular major problems. But a lot of the help comes through those sessions, but talking to other people, because they're not alone, back to being alone with the crisis themselves, because they're talking to the mates. Then the next step is the mental health awareness 2-day course, half-day course. Is we advocate that, saying, get your, one of the things about the industry is the soft skills in the industry are not great. You often get promoted into a position because of your technical capability.
Yeah.
And the industry doesn't throw an awful lot of soft skills, people management skills at you. So that half-day awareness gives you a little bit of access to some people management skills, the way to look and recognize somebody who is struggling, how to approach them, how to have a chat with them, and how to give empathy to them. And then the final 5-step plan, and the 5th step is a 2-day mental health first aid course, where having somebody who's a specialist on site, who's had that little bit extra training on site, the go-to person, then is good. And then if you can see how that picture starts emerging, is that you've got somebody who's completely surrounded with that type of support, whether they do stuff self-help on an app, they talk to somebody anonymously through a 24/7 helpline, they talk to somebody on site, and then the final piece of the jigsaw is, they see themselves as, I need some more resilience training, so they will go get some more training on things like resilience, stress management, etc. And all of this is available to them. So that's what we're saying to any company. There's no reason why a company, no matter small or how large, can take those very first 5 steps without having to, throw vast amounts of money at it. But they do need to basically, buy into that program, to know that it's going to do a good thing for them. And the little giveaway that I always say in this step is that, the industry is very good at doing things right, but it takes leadership to do right things. And what you need to do from a management point of view is do the right thing, and without questioning, putting building a good culture for mental health in your company is a right thing to do. You don't need to ask too many questions. It will return loyalty. It will return better productivity. It will return a safer site. No questions asked.
Yeah, you reminded me there with the downloadable presentation at my old job, which was for a community sports company. I delivered with the Time to Change campaign. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but one of the tasks or the activities was the mask you wear. And on one side of the paper, you write down all of the sort of personality characteristics that you want to display in a customer-facing community sports role, like working at a sports centre. And then on the other side of the paper, everybody wrote down how they were really feeling. And that exercise sort of opened the door to so much emotional, in some cases like heartache and like really deep sharing, but also empathy. And it brought the team closer together in the long run, even though at the time it was pretty heavy, some of the things that people were talking about. But it was such an eye-opener, because there was people working together every day who thought that person X was fine and jovial, and they were actually going through a really hard time.
I think that's a great lesson to learn, because I think we're all in the same place with that, is that everybody has a veneer. Everybody has a persona that they give to the outside world, and the only person you're going to live with all your life is you. Other people might interact for long periods and short periods of time, but the only person you're going to live with all your life is you. So you better get comfortable with yourself. And if you're living in a world where your outside persona is so different from your inside persona, then you're always in conflict throughout your whole life about who you are and what you stand for, and getting those two areas more closely aligned is what will make you feel more peaceful and more comfortable with you. And at the end of the day, that's the person you've got to be most comfortable with. And it's about personal integrity as well, because I see so many people, who openly display one thing. And another little thing is just, it's what do you do when people are not watching, as opposed to when people are watching. That's what really makes you who you are. If you're this person that is looking, so imagine Joe Wicks or something like that, who gives this persona of being absolutely fabulous, dead cool, Superman. Yeah. Supposing in his private time he was smoking and drinking all the time. Or you found out he had a drink problem, it would be a real surprise, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But if that was a conflict that he, by the way, this is not any inside track knowledge or anything like that, okay? This is me just making this up. But just imagine the internal conflict he would have being in the public eye as somebody who's like this, when his own private persona, when the door's closed and the lights are out, he's a different person. That's a huge conflict inside him that he needs to manage, and it's very difficult to manage. So the closer you can get your person behind closed doors in line with the person who you are in the public, the less conflict you have to work with as an individual. But I think we all carry that. So it's so the point you make about taking off the mask, everybody's got one.
It's tough because we're all in roles that require us to be a certain way, and not everyone's in a role that they were born to play. So it's a juggling act of being the best version of yourself that you can to do the job you're being paid to do, but also, fulfilling the person that you truly are. I think that's what people can struggle with.
Yeah, and it is out of balance with everybody. I mean, it's very difficult, probably, and you'd never tell. The only person that can tell if it's in balance is you. and there's, then you get people like Donald Trump, who is probably, is a narcissist and some sort of social, it's just he's got problems, so he doesn't actually recognize he's got a problem. Internally, he's totally imbalanced because he walks around thinking there's not a problem here, is there? But normal people, who've got empathy and a conscience, will have that internal conflict all the time, and it is just keep on battling at it to because that's the struggle we all have. We all have that struggle. Again, it's disappearing down the psychology route again.
It is. You mentioned briefly earlier that a lot of managers sort of within the construction industry will get promoted based on technical ability as opposed to ability with soft skills, so people management. If, for example, you were a manager who was lacking in those soft skill areas, what would be the best way for you to understand or to I suppose to understand if one of your colleagues was going through a tough time mentally? How would you be able to tell?
Okay, so one, if you've been on the half-day awareness course, it would really help.
Okay.
It covers all that subject matter, but I believe that everybody walks around with some antennae of some sorts. Some people's antennae are a little bit more developed than others, and one of the things you can look for, and it's quite difficult in the construction industry, is one of the key things you're looking for is change in an individual. So if somebody's always been the laughy, jokey, sort of participating individual, and then suddenly over a period of time you see they're quiet and retired and reserved, then something's happened. And it's always worth the time to ask, are you all right? And one of the things as well is and these are the three golden nuggets that if nothing else is a takeaway from any of the courses, we always give the three golden nuggets, which is, first of all, always ask twice. If you see somebody who's struggling, and you will see people who are struggling, it's always ask twice, not once. And not in the casual way that we normally do it as well, because if you listen to people walking past somebody else, they will go, are you all right? Okay, thank you, goodbye. Sometimes they don't even allow the other person to respond, But if you ask that certain question again, which is, are you all right? Are you sure? Or I've noticed, and that's even better, I've noticed you've not been yourself lately. Tom, you do seem to be a bit down at the moment. Are you okay? That second question, you might say, nah, it's nothing, just I'm okay. I'm just going through a bit of problems, but leave me alone. So the worst thing that could happen is somebody rejects you, but they think you're a jolly good egg. But if they do then start responding, the second part of the process is also key, which is how to listen non-judgmentally. And that is a real skill, because we all judge, people as soon as they start, as soon as you see somebody, you start judging them. As soon as you start talking, you start judging them. As soon as you're listening to what they're saying, you start judging them. So it's very difficult to try and listen to somebody non-judgmentally and not put your lens on what they're saying, because the fact that you don't have a problem with what their problem is doesn't mean to say they don't have a problem with it. So it's about listening non-judgmentally is the second key to that. And then the third element of this three little golden nuggets is always be kind. There's no reason to be unkind to another human being. Unless you're in a war situation where, you've got to be, but then in those situations when you talk to the military, they're sort of kind of trained to objectify the enemy, so they don't have the feelings of empathy, so they can actually do the job that needs to be done. But in a working situation, that's not the case. Working situation, there's no reason to be unkind to another person. So even if you have to deliver a tough message, like you're off project, I'm afraid, the work's over for you, mate, I'm sorry. You can let that person down in a way that doesn't destroy them and make them feel really bad about it. You can do it in a kindest possible way to do that. So it's ask twice, listen non-judgmentally, and always be kind is the three little golden nuggets. And you don't have to go on a course to do any of those. Those are things that you can pick up right now and walk out the door and start using today, without it. So any manager or any black hat or anything, if they just follow those three simple rules. In fact, if everybody followed those three simple rules, we wouldn't have any calls into the helpline. We wouldn't have any problems. Basically, if everybody had that sort of three little simple rules and did them every day. Tough to do.
Bill, the way you speak now, you seem, or at least to me, maybe Callum as well, like something of an expert in terms of talking to people in a way that's going to most benefit their mental health. But I'm guessing if we go a little bit back into your history in the more corporate world, you weren't operating in exactly the same way. So if that's the case, is there any part of you that wishes the way you approach people now was the same to how you did it back then? Do you feel like you've learned some skills recently that would have benefited your management and your people skills 20, 30 years ago?
Oh, undoubtedly. When your age as well as you're climbing, whatever ladder you decide to climb, and some of the times, you have to step over somebody to get the next rung. And depending what kind of environment. But I was very lucky in working. I worked for 16 years with Hewlett Packard, and Hewlett Packard was always seen as a good employer. And I remember going to the States to learn about diversity in the mid 80s before it became a thing. Because in California they were all into diversity and all that sort of things. When I came back here, I started talking about diversity policies inside the UK. It was a bit of a shocker, and things like that. So at an early stage, within the corporate environment, I was very lucky to be working. Very different from Sage, because Sage was a British company, very hierarchical. Office driven, sort of the bigger office you had, the more sort of power base you had, that sort of type thing. So
the
things
corporate office.
Yeah, the corporate office. Yeah, look at it. It's my shed in the garden now.
It's all changed.
It's all changed. So things like that. So but without a doubt, going through life and having children as well is where you learn a lot of the skills. And treating people like your own family, even though they're strangers, is not a bad thing. You don't have to bring them to your house and feed them and give them money and everything like that, but you treat them like one of your family, because we're part of the human race and family. So that doesn't come very easily. When I was a bit younger, it was kind of, it seemed to be all competitive and wanting to get one up on somebody. Now I don't really want to get a one up on anybody at the moment.
At the moment.
I just want to get a golf ball. Usually gets all my energy.
Yeah, a trip to the driving range is all it takes.
Just all it takes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just to quickly bring conversation back to the Lighthouse Club and the past year that we've had, what sort of impact has the pandemic had upon the amount of calls that you've had into the helpline, as well as the amount of cases that you've had to deal with in the last near enough 12 months now, isn't it?
Yeah, that has been quite harrowing. The number of cases has gone up by 70%, which is huge, which is a massive increase, and the complexity of the cases have gone up as well, and that's what's been harrowing through this period of time is the complexity and the depth of the cases that we're working with now. Is concerning. That and what we don't know is how that's affecting the suicide rates in our industry, because the suicide rates in our industry are horrendous. Every working day we're losing 2 construction workers to suicide. 50% of all male suicides in Ireland work in construction. horrendous. The #1 industry for suicides in the US, construction. The #1 industry in Australia for suicides, construction. How on earth are we supposed to bring in young people into this industry and encourage young people into the industry when stats like that are kicking around? So we are really morally obligated, all of us, anybody in this industry is morally obligated to do something to help make this a better place to work, and find ways of doing that. And our little charity's doing our bit, we think, to try and put all the safety net mechanisms there to catch people if they're in trouble. But if they don't come to us early enough, it makes it harder for us to make a bigger impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I understand that. And when you mentioned about people coming to you early, like as soon as they realise that there could be a potential issue there, one of the questions that we had from a colleague of mine who's interested in the topic, he's asked me to ask, when normal methods of alleviating stress, so for example, socialising or going for a holiday, aren't available to you at the moment, what advice or any tips would you suggest to help alleviating stress at the moment?
Well, the World Health Organization comes up with a whole sort of 10 different things to help relieve stress. I mean, the very first one, which is one I believe anybody can do, is to go for a walk. And a mindful walk. Put the phone, leave the phone in the house, no interruptions, and go for a mindful walk. Just taking in your surroundings, and everything around you. There's a whole raft of things that people can do, but that's certainly for me the first thing. And yeah, keeping fit is another thing, because everybody knows that keeping fit in some way, shape, or form will release endorphins that are going to help relieve stress. Stress is caustic. I mean, it does have its own endorphins it releases. It's very caustic to your body. Having some way of counteracting that caustic element in your body with something like fitness and exercise is a good thing, because it will actually relieve it. Breathing, again, if you're not into fitness, then just breathing. And the advocate thing called, I don't know if you've done any of these breathing exercises, like 4 square breathing. Have you tried any of those things like that?
I downloaded one in the first lockdown called, I think it's called Headspace, which is an app, like a meditation app, which is quite good.
Yeah. And I've had people in a room. I said, do you want to try it? And yeah. So you get people in the room, and it basically is counting. It's breathing in for 4, but breathing in so your stomach rises, and you put your hands on your stomach, just breathe in for 4, raising your stomach, hold it for 4, and exhaling it for 4. And then people do this for maybe just a minute, and I say to them, "What were you thinking about?" And they said, "Breathing." There you go. So every other thought of stress has gone out of your head for that moment, because all you're doing is concentrating on breathing. And it's about putting that stillness. Stress is, all these different businesses in your head, and you got a busy head. And I don't know if you've ever read a book called The Chimp Paradox. Is that a book that you've read?
I'm looking at it on my bookshelf. I can see it up there.
That right? Okay. Well, it's an easy read, and it does talk about this little chimp chattering away at you all the time, in your ear. And your chimp could be your biggest ally, but it also can be your biggest foe as well. It's like your Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder, shouting at you, and just it is a really good book to read. But it's about calming that noise, because that's the thing that gives you stress, is you just feel as if there's just too much coming at you at one time. And that's why mindfulness is good. That's why meditation is good. These breathing exercises are good. Going out and having a mindful walk, like just not having your phone with you. And this is where sometimes the downside of the phone is that if you're always able and contactable, etc., then you're always on edge. And it's good just to put it down sometimes and just say we're not contactable. So there's lots of things you can do to relieve stress without having going on holiday and having to spend big expenditure at it. There's plenty of things to do. And
are you practicing what you preach, Bill? What things are you doing day to day to look after your own mental health?
One of the things I've got is I've got a punch bag in the garden. Yeah.
Cool.
That helps a lot.
Golf balls or punch bags?
Yeah. I've got a golf practice net in the back garden as well, so that helps a lot. And I'm actually very good at, my wife has a go at me sometimes because I might sit down and watch some rubbish on the television. But for me, that is passive. Like after a day where you've been full on or whatever, sitting down and not having to think is great. And there's plenty of programs on the television that you don't have to think. So some of the things that are really brilliant at the moment are things like Winter Watch. Don't know if you get time to watch it. Winter Watch and Country File. Right. And it's all about nature. It's all around us. And I'm absolutely fascinated. I've never been into this in such a big way before. But it's just talking about the things around us. And that sort of stuff de-stresses. I think is super for doing that.
Mm.
Perfect. I think I've just got one final question for you. It's a big one. I know you've been at the Lighthouse Club for 7 years. What I want to know is what is your proudest moment to date in your position?
Your proudest moment? I don't think I've got one particular moment. Proudest thing, I would say, is the way that we are now looking so holistically at culture change within the industry and feeling the charity is actually central to making that happen. It's not periphery to the industry. It's central to the industry to help make that change happen. And that is the biggest thing I feel strongly about is making the charity so relevant to that change. And it's working with like the industry guys in the building mental health program, putting like-minded people together that are open about this stuff as well and want to share. And say one of my biggest hopes and beliefs, and it is actually working, is that nobody tries to stick intellectual property on this mental health thing and tries to. It's about everything that we try to use, we try to make it free for everybody, and so that it makes it easily accessible to everybody.
Perfect. Thank you. I don't know, Tom, do you have any final questions for Bill?
Yeah, I've got another challenging one. Hopefully. Well, I just want to know in however long you think you've got left with the Lighthouse Club, by the time that journey ends, what is your dream vision of what the landscape looked like within the charity itself and then the construction industry as a whole?
Looking forward, and I never see I see myself only as a passing steward of the charity. The charity is so much bigger than any individual, and although perhaps I've had a good influence on the charity, moving it from, probably taking one of its biggest steps forward that it's ever done in its history. So where I would like to see the charity when I exit the charity is two things. One is that the vast number of people within the industry know we're there for them. So I'll still you go out on site tomorrow or whatever, if you get on site, and you'll ask, what the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity, and maybe one person out of 10 will say, oh yeah, I've heard of them, or even know what they do. Wouldn't that be great if it's 9 out of 10? Yeah. So it's about having that awareness that we're always there for them. We are the go-to place for if people need some support, we're the go-to place to get it. So that would be one thing that I'd love to leave behind from a charitable services point of view. And from a charity stability point of view, then one of the things I would like to do there is to, at the moment, our charity is 80-90% dependent on non-reliable revenue, like events. So over the period of time, I'd like to change that to some sort of annuity revenue where it's predictable, where companies are putting money in on a regular basis that we can predict is actually coming in. So if I can get up to 50-60% regular income, I know, one, I'm leaving the charity in a very stable position, and secondly, the charity is known in the industry as being the go-to place to get help and support and being the safety net for everybody in the industry. If I can achieve those two things, I'll be well happy.
Perfect. Yeah, I wish you the best of luck with everything, and Vertemax will play as a small but passionate part if we can.